Message Live. To make sure that you don't miss anything we're doing, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, make sure that you turn on notifications. You don't want to miss a thing.
Well, hello everybody, welcome to Mates on a Mission. It's great to have you back with us. Today we are talking to the legend that is Mark Ritchie, evangelist, comedian, storyteller and founder of the 73rd Trust. It's great to have you with us, Mark.
It's good to be here. Really
great.
Good.
I've waited 25 years to have this opportunity to apologise to you. See, in the mid-90s, you spoke at a AOG youth camp in North Wales. I'm sure you remember it well. I certainly do. I was like the nightmare kid. You and Tamsin and a very young Jordan, I think, would have been asleep in one room. And me and a bunch of horrible teenagers were in the room next door. And we bought the world's largest super soakers. We were just tearing the place apart. And I remember you coming in one night in the middle of the night saying, guys, and just saying, I'm going to have to break your necks. And you were speaking your heart out. You were absolutely on fire and we were a nightmare. So I want to take this opportunity to say, sorry, Mark, for all of that.
Well, apology not accepted. And this interview now has to... No, of course, it's great. I mean, I can never be judgmental because I was the idiot with the super soaker at one point in my life. So,
oh mate, but I have to say you were so influential throughout my youth. In fact, it would have been at a camp like that I committed my life to the Lord. So I'm so grateful for your ministry and the way in which you brought the gospel to life. You know, with such incredible gifting that you seem to be able to take a Bible passage, bring it to life and make it real for me. Absolutely brilliant. So tell me, when did you realize you had a gifting like that? You know, when did you realize you were an evangelist?
Yeah. Well, I became a Christian when I was 12 and I never ever rebelled. So, you know, a lot of people's story is that they go away from God and they come back. But I was that guy that I got it. I was like, I'm in. And I remember when I was 16, we had this thing where I just have to apologize that if I sound a little bit weird to anyone, it's just that I've been on this character challenge and I actually broke my tooth. So I feel like I'm speaking a bit weird, but maybe everyone's just going, no, that's how you normally talk. So, you know, it's fine. But no, the thing was that when I was 16, I remember the leader of the church saying that they'd got this club going on at a housing estate and they were trying to do lots of activities and fun, but they were having a lot of trouble that when they got to the God bit, no one was listening. And they asked if any of us wanted to have a go. So I remember myself and my few mates, okay, let's do it. And I was on 1 week and I'll never forget it. I was 16 and I stood in front of about 50 young people and I started talking and the room just went silent. And I did this kind of illustration. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, God, you are right here, right now.
Come on.
And the room was silent. And I've never done it before, but I thought, I'm going to go for an appeal. I'm going to invite people to become Christians. And I went for it. And 5 young people, like, hands up, yes. And then at the end, I'll just remember the leaders coming over and their eyes were massive. And they were like, what have you just done? And I was like, I don't know. I just, got something from God and went for it. And it was kind of right then. Somebody just put their hand on my shoulder and said, mate, I think you've got a gift from God. And, obviously I had to develop it and craft it. But even at that young age, there was something going on that was like, oh, this is a bit of a God thing. This is a bit of an anointing thing. Yeah.
Wow. So have you ever had a proper job then, Mark, or have you gone straight into being an evangelist? Like, what was that step? What were the steps that led you to going out on your own? And did that feel like a brave step? Give us more.
Yeah. No, so what I did from there is I love my dad. My dad's a wise man. And my dad said to me, son, I started to talk about I feel the calling of God. I want to go to Bible college. And my dad was a bit like, great, but you know, you need to get a proper job first. You need to like actually get some money, learn what it is to kind of do a job. And so I did, and I became a salesman for a couple of years, and I sold all kinds of stuff. And basically, I remember the day when I was in the sales place, and the guy says, "Oh, we've got a promotion for you." And I says, "Listen, I'm going to go to Bible college." And it felt a bit like I've kind of proven myself in this sort of world. Now I can go on to college. I went on to college. I became an assistant minister. But probably my biggest faith step was when I actually gave up my job as an assistant minister and launched into becoming a full-time evangelist. And I had to take a step of faith, and I had no money. And we just had Jordan was just been born. And that's a big one. That was terrifying. That was terrifying. Somebody said this. I really love this, but you know, it's really important. Taking a step in the dark is braver than taking a leap in the light. And I really love that. To me, that's powerful because we like to control everything. But God said, give up your wage. How am I going to get money? Take a step out into the dark and you'll find me. And I really did.
Wow. That's beautiful, mate. That must have been hard, though. I mean, wow, you suddenly got to find money to be able to feed your family, like a little growing family. That must have been so tough, mate. Wow.
Yeah, and I've got massive admiration for my wife because I'm like, you know, Tamsin, I know we're just about to have a baby, but I'm thinking of giving my only source of income up and stepping out on this. And, you know, she backed me, and we stepped out in faith, and it was great.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with my wife when I left finance to go and be a church leader, and my wife saying, "I didn't marry a pastor. This is I'm not. This is really difficult for me." You know, so bless her. Yeah, wives are incredible, aren't they? How they journey with us.
Yeah.
When I think about your ministry, mate, like whether that's your preaching, your teaching, or the comedy stuff, right at the very heart of all that seems to be your ability to tell stories. And I wondered if you had any secrets to storytelling that you could share with us.
No, I love telling stories. So my personality, if you spend 20 minutes with me, I've told you 5 stories. I mean, I just love stories. And I think I really love, I saw this thing about the city of Troy, and when the Greeks were trying to get in and they couldn't get in because the barriers were up, the walls were up, and they built the Trojan horse, and they got the wooden horse, and then the horse gets in through the wall. And then when all the Trojans or people were sleeping, the Greeks come out and they open the gates. And for me, that's what like a great story is like. I sort of learned my trade in Barnsley, in high schools, with kids looking at me like, arms folded. What's this guy got to say? And I know you've seen that kind of deal as well, where people are like, every barrier there's ever been is up. They're like, there's a wall between you and me right now. And I feel like stories, we've got this truth, and we've got to put it inside the horse, and we've got to get the story gets you inside the wall. It gets you inside. And then once you're inside, you can bring out this amazing truth, and the truth will set them free. So I make no bones about it that some of my stories are literally just to woo people, just to get the barriers to come down, and I have no problem with that. Some people will listen to my preaching sometimes and they say, that first story that you told, what did that have to do? And I'm like, guys, you can absolutely nail me if you like, but the deal is, I'm just trying to get the barriers down. And I'm standing in pubs in East Belfast, and the crowd do not love me. You know, they are not enjoying, you know, the Scottish guy. I've got to find some way of getting these barriers down and getting the truth in. And so I would say to people, keep writing everything down. I write everything down. I've got a booklet that's with me all the time, and I will hear something, I'll write it down. And I'm always collecting anecdotes, stories, and just playing with things. And it's amazing how you can get the gospel into the most incredible thing.
I love it. I love how you've used the story to tell us about storytelling, Mark. Just absolutely genius. Thanks, mate. So what do you do to keep yourself fresh? Like, how do you stir up that gift of an evangelist? You know, there must be some difficult days, some dark days where you just think, I just haven't got it. And, you know, I'm not really up for it. How do you stir yourself and get yourself ready?
Yeah, that's a great question, buddy. I learned something a few years ago that really helped me. I did a mission where I felt God asked me to carry a cross over Britain.
Yeah.
And it lasted 70 days. And I actually, in one of the days, I actually came into the message, and I had my cross there. And that was all part of my journey up to Scotland. I went from Brighton up to Edinburgh. And then I went across from Wrexham across to Hull. So I actually walked in the shape of a cross. And it took me 70 days, 700 miles. It was pretty full on, but it was a powerful time, and people wrote their sins into Post-it notes and put them on the cross. It was incredible. But mate, when I got off that mission, I went through the bleakest and toughest time. It was so dark. But in that time, I learned this daily discipline, and the daily discipline was speaking to my soul. God showed me this picture. I was done. I was fried. I remember I was sitting by the River Trent in Nottingham, where I live, and I saw one of those boats go by. You know, the kind that you might see in the Cambridge Oxford race, or maybe at the Olympics. And I saw one go past, and I saw the rowers, and I saw the little guy at the end with a microphone, you know, called the cox of the boat, and he's speaking to the rowers. And God showed me this as a picture, and God said, Mark, that boat is like your soul, and those rowers are like your feelings, your will, and also like your thoughts. But that cox at the end of the boat, that's you. You've got to speak to your feelings. You've got to speak to your thoughts. You can't just be like laid back and let them happen and be passive. You've got to speak to them. Just like David, you know, we see it all through Psalms. David, why are you downcast, O my soul? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him. And so that changed my life. Do not follow your feelings. Inform your feelings. So tell your feelings, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. So I've done a podcast on this called Soul Focus. And if wherever you get your podcasts, if you put that in, Soul Focus by Mark Ritchie, and there's 4, and a lot of people have found it helpful at this time when our equilibrium is all over the place. Wow. It's actually a very helpful tool.
Wow, mate, thank you so much. We'll make sure we put the link in this YouTube video so that people can get access to that.
Thank you. You
remind me of George Muller. I think he said something like, it's my primary business each morning to make myself happy in God. Almost like, you know, he has to stir himself. Maybe his natural disposition at times is to be lack hope, or to be fearful, or to be anxious, or whatever it might be. But in a sense, he has to speak to himself and say, you know what, I'm going to get myself happy in God. He's the one that's unchanging, the same yesterday, today, and forever. All those things, mate. I bet that podcast is phenomenal. So yes, I'll certainly access that and make it all available to our guys too. Tell us, Mark, what are you doing for church these days? Where do you fit in? How does it all work?
Well, I'm part of a church in Nottingham, and we are actually still online. And so I'm always like speaking and just doing Zoom preaches. And it's a weird time. I'll tell you one funny little thing. I was speaking for quite a big conference on Zoom, and I'm in my study here, and I'm preaching my heart out. And it's fine because the main picture that I can see is like you. You know, you're engaged, you're listening, you're nodding, I'm like, this is great. But then I don't know how it happened, but someone flicked it on. And suddenly I'm in the middle of preaching, and there's a guy, he's lying on his bed. And I promise you, he's just lying in his bed. He's so bored. He's got, he's just like scratching himself. I'm like in the middle of this fervent preach, and all I've got on my screen is this guy, basically. And I thought, oh, Jesus, did you have this? I don't think Jesus had this. Did Billy Graham have this?
I can't imagine just how robbing that is of any kind of sense of passion that you've got within you. You know, where you feel like you're smashing it, and then suddenly it's all gone pear-shaped. Man, that's tough. How are you coping then? You're used to being face to face with audiences. You know, when you're doing comedy, I imagine you're playing off the noise of the audience. You sense what's working and what's not, and then now you find yourself in Zoom world. That's got to be a nightmare, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I would love to say it's been easy, but oh man, it's terrible. I mean, I've done a few Zoom comedy things I've been asked to do, and it's like 20 minutes of you just like speaking to a screen and nothing. I said to my dad, I says, that's fine for you, Dad. You never get anything anyway. So, but his jokes normally die, but I'm like, oh man, this is horrible. So oh dear. It's been really hard. And like 2020, my whole diary's just been, I was meant to be speaking in Australia, I was meant to be at the Edinburgh Fringe, everything just wiped out. So it's been a tricky little time to keep my own heart and mind kind of, but I just keep on, and I've had a few amazing opportunities. So there's been some stuff where I've had the chance to do evangelistic events that probably in normal world I never would have got. So there's a whole load of professional footballers, and they all meet together on Zoom, and I was asked to come and speak to them about God. So wow, what a privilege! What an opportunity! Is it? And this is what we've got to be thinking. In this crisis, is an opportunity lurking somewhere in the crisis? Is a possibility hiding somewhere in the pandemic? It's like we've got to be thinking like this.
Totally, mate. Do you feel like the church has put evangelism on hold? It feels like, when the COVID thing kicked off and we all got locked down, churches went into this mad scramble to work out how they could exist and put themselves online. And I feel like when I look around, I'm not too sure whether we've gotten back out of that survival mode of, batten down the hatches, let's get through this. But tell me your perspective. Do you feel like evangelism is back on the agenda?
Well, I feel it's a mixed, I would say, it's a mixed reaction from church. I agree 100% that I would say a huge percentage of churches are exactly like what you're saying. And that's been hard for me to try and talk to church leaders and say, guys, we can't just be like, keeping our church people happy and like making sure we've got something for them. We've got to be thinking wider and bigger. But also, I've been amazed at like some of the things that have happened. One of the churches that I'm involved with, and they had a lady who said to her, she says, since I've been watching online, because I've never been to your church, but thank you for building a back row behind the back row so that I could come in and I could just have a little look. And she says, I love it. And now I want to move forward a row every week. And before long, I'll be on the front row. And so you think, well, this is amazing. There in amongst it, there are some great stories. I know a lot of people are finding this, but our alpha groups are absolutely full on Zoom. And what people are finding us, we are having people who've never actually been in our physical building, but they're now part of our church and they've all just joined online. So it's crazy. But, you know, we're just kind of like, God, we're rolling with this. We're going to sort of see what happens.
Yes, come on. Do you feel like God is speaking to you right now? Do you feel like you've got a word for this season? Anything you can share with us? What's God saying?
Yeah, God is speaking to me. And, you know, I feel like I do want to be careful, because I do know that people have got different situations. But I feel like what I do want to speak to a lot of us is let us live adventurous, daring lives. You know, I don't want limitation to be the last word on 2020. You know, we've been very limited this year. You know, it's all been about containing us. It's been about keeping us indoors. But, you know, it's about let us live adventurous, daring lives where we are dependent on God to such a degree that if God does not turn up, we are screwed. And, you know, I want to live like that. I really felt like I saw that picture again. You know, when Jesus is walking on water and he called, and Peter says, Lord, I'm coming. And Peter gets out of the boat and he walks on the waves. But something that God's been speaking to me is the place of safety as Peter begins to sink in the storm. The place of safety is not the boat. The place of safety is next to Jesus.
Oh,
and, you know, I kind of think, wow, that's for me. You know, in the storm, a lot of us think the place of safety is back to normal. If I could only just get back to normal. But actually, that is not the place of safety. The place of safety is next to Jesus in the storm. And that's deeply impacted me. And, you know, I hope maybe someone is listening. And I understand people are in different situations, but let's not be timid. Let's not be fearful, but let's live faith-filled, adventurous lives. Yeah.
Come on, mate. That is absolutely brilliant. Yes. I'm all for that. Man, the place of safety is next to Jesus. All about proximity, being near him. And wow, isn't it amazing how he wants to be near us? I know. Overwhelming.
I know.
Jesus. Wow. Mate, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I feel like we could talk all day, just overwhelmed with what you bring, all that God is doing in and through your life. It's just incredible. So thanks so much for spending time with us, and getting to know you a little bit better has been fantastic. So cheers, mate.
Bless you, man. Really great chat.
Bye.
We hope that you enjoyed the show. Make sure you don't miss out on what's coming up on Message Live. All you need to do is like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click the bell to receive notifications and the latest news of Message Live.